Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Advance Your Art with Yuri Cataldo. If you're interested in learning how to build a company, make money from your art, or transition to a new career, you've come to the right place. If you like this episode, please remember to like and share with a friend. Today I'm chatting with Brandi Bernoskie, digital strategist, website developer, and founder of Alchemy and Aim and North Star Sites. Brandi, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, Yuri. This is exciting.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute pleasure. So, as with everything else, how are you doing these days? Which probably is a loaded question, but it's hard to ignore the elephant in the room right now.
Yeah, I'm actually doing well. It was the past few months have obviously been interesting, and I unknowingly set my business and my company up really well. My entire team works remotely. Most of our clients they have their business as a component of them, at least online. And if anything, what I love doing, I love the work I do because I'm working with people who seek to be leaders in these times, either guiding people and helping them build more resilience, or taking a stance on Black Lives Matter and helping people find resources to be more educated and more aware. So I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of our clients around those things. So we haven't slowed down, and we've actually been pretty busy, and we've really been looking to help amplify the voices of the people that we work with so that they can do more good in this world and with what they do.
That's great. So let's start from the beginning on this one.
Yes.
For my listeners who are not familiar with you and your work, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
So I really think of myself, I started out as a website developer, meaning like I code things. Over time, I've grown really into a website strategist, a digital strategist, and also kind of a bit of a business coach with some of our clients. Mm-hmm. I see it as my job and my responsibility to help my clients make better decisions, business decisions, personal decisions. Sometimes it's telling them just reminding them that they don't have to do it all. That sometimes staying really focused on what they're good at is the key, and not trying to spread their time out around 17 different social media channels. Like they can choose two and be great at those two things. And they can be things that they love. They don't have to do a bunch of things that they don't love in order to feel like they're better connecting with their audience. So that's kind of become my role. And I have a team now who actually does most of the coding. And I just get to go in and pop in and provide perspective and really hold the big picture vision and objective for our clients.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to ask, I guess, a very broad question here, just because I'm so intrigued by this. So I'm looking on your LinkedIn at your education, and you have a BFA in theater from NYU, a BA in physics, philosophy and religion from Rutgers, and you did graduate work in philosophy at UC San Diego. Yeah. So what? So tell me more about that. What made you want to go that route from theater to physics to philosophy, and how has that, and then what was your journey after that? So again, really big question, so feel free to answer any of those that you want.
Yeah. So it wasn't exactly planned. It's not like I was like, aha, this is what exactly the path to take is to do all of these degrees and studies. Mm-hmm. I really started out with the intention that I was going to be an actor. Like that was it. I went to NYU for that. That was my plan. I had been majoring in physics there as well. And I just, at the time it was a little difficult to manage all of the requirements of the theater program because it was pretty intense. It was a very intense writing program, theater education and acting. So I was in studio 3 full days a week and then in classes, 2 full days essentially. So I eventually just kept my theater major and minored in physics and math. But I was in New York. I went to NYU in 1998. So it was my senior year when September 11th happened. And I had already started to kind of feel a bit of a shift in me as to like, as much as I loved acting and I really wanted to be in shows that had something to say, I also was getting into producing shows and assistant directing shows, got more interested in religion and kind of like the broader picture of religion. And as soon as, fall 2001 in New York kind of really made me think more about what impact that I could have personally. And I really wanted to kind of go back to school. So I will say I graduated not entirely knowing what I was going to do. I ended up working and running a tutoring center for a while. So really worked with a lot of young kids, was picking up a lot from them, fell in love with teaching. And at the same time was taking classes in religion and philosophy. Religion really got me into philosophy. Okay. And I discovered that as cool as religion and philosophy were, it is it's hard to be the field that you go into if you're not actually religious. So I had applied to seminary school and they're like, what church is sponsoring you? I'm like, I don't have a church sponsoring me. This is just like intellectual curiosity. So it became kind of a natural idea to then move into philosophy of science because I had the strong physics background. I always was fascinated by how, religion and science as 2 different paradigms and sometimes potentially 2 conflicting paradigms in some people's minds could coexist. And was interviewing a lot of professors and ended up in philosophy of science, doing more work in physics, getting another math minor. And I thought after all this time tutoring and working and teaching that I really, really wanted to be a college professor. So that was the reason I ended up in a PhD program for philosophy of science and science studies. And I loved it. I loved the materials so much. And I had some great professors at UCSD, but it was also a real look at being a college professor and discovering, this is just a fact. Like when you're if you're a philosophy professor, but this is true of pretty much if you're a professor of anything, it's not like there are infinite jobs out there. So sometimes there's maybe 3 jobs that pop up in a year and they may not be in your ideal locations. So, it just was it became a thing, just an idea where I was like looking at the actual life of being a college professor. And I really wanted to, again, I kept thinking, I'm like, I just want to reach people. And I couldn't imagine writing these academic papers that maybe 5 people would read, maybe 15 if you're lucky. If it's a really great paper, it sticks around for a while and you get a few hundred people to read it. But I was like, how do we get this even bigger than that? So it just kind of became obvious that the life of a college professor wasn't for me. So it was a lot of kind of like choices and twists and turns along the way. And after I left my PhD program, I actually got a job at a nonprofit. We were doing earth science education for NASA. So this was actually like, now I was like, okay, great. Here's the thing. I'm in a thing that has a huge reach because NASA's education materials go into many different schools across the country. And I still found myself just like feeling like I wasn't really fulfilling all and like giving all that I had to give. And it's hard to kind of explain, but beyond that, but it's like I think when you are an artist of any sort, whether it's an actor or a sculptor or a singer or a musician, like creativity drives you and you need to create in all different ways. So being boxed in any job can often feel exhausting and restricting. And at that point, I had been blogging and I had taught myself to code and I was coding just enough that I figured, you know what, this could actually be a thing. And I imagined myself, I was like, I could live the life of a freelancer, sure. But when you've got that creativity within you, making the leap to freelancer, next thing you know, you're hiring people and you're building. And I think that's, what I love most about what I do is that there are endless ideas. And not just my ideas now, like there are my ideas of my business of like, oh, I could do it like that or like that, and I could help people in this way. But also when you start engaging with clients with really interesting businesses, you help them shape their ideas as well, and the work that they're doing and the impact they're having as well. So that's kind of, it's a very strange route. And I will say, like, sometimes I tried things and decided, what, this wasn't for me, but I'm really glad that I ended up where I ended up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's incredibly fascinating, and I love it. So I'm, as a side note, I'm just curious, as somebody who studied philosophy, what's your opinion of the TV show The Good Place?
I think it's a trip. I think it's a funny show. I've watched, I think I've seen 2 seasons of it now. And I just, like anything,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of take it lightheartedly. I will say, a show like that, I can just kind of shut off my philosophy brain and just enjoy. The ones that get me are, so when I was in grad school, I was TA for one of my professors in a philosophy of time
Mm-hmm.
course. And it's time travel inconsistencies that bug me the most in movies. Like anytime I see a time travel inconsistency, I'm like, this is logically inconsistent for time travel. Like it just can't happen, So that I will say that's the one point where really my philosopher brain does not turn off, and I'm just like, this could not happen. I don't even know why they're showing this. It's just totally like impossible. But
That's good to know that's where the line is drawn.
for some
travel.
reason, yes, time travel and all of the really bad time travel shows out there.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So let's talk about then your first company, Alchemy and Aim. Because you kind of talked a little bit about how you just went then to being a freelancer and then started hiring people. Was there a time in place where you were like, this is now a company I'm going to do? Or was it something that was gradual, where it was like, I'm going to be freelancing, now I need to hire some people, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I guess this is a company now?
it was the latter, honestly. I hadn't planned on it being a company. I didn't even think of it as a company even as I first started hiring. So I had pretty much within about 18 months of starting being a freelancer, I had maxed myself out. I was working 6 full days a week, and I had to turn down really like ridiculously good projects because
Mm-hmm.
I had no time. For a while, I thought I had to just totally like find something different to do, and was very fortunate to find a business coach at that time who was like, or you could hire someone to help you and take things off your plate. And I was like, what? I could? That's right. That's a thing that you can actually do. So I hired an admin assistant, someone who was actually in-house with me at the time. And then I was like, I can also hire I can hire some developers. And I really thought it was going to be me and 2 developers and the admin assistant, and that was it. And it was really that first admin who mentioned to me one day, she said, I told people I work for you, but it's just a little strange when you're just like, yeah, I work for Brandi Bernoskie. And they're like, what? Who? And that was kind of when I realized I might need to name this thing.
Yeah.
So I've always struggled with naming things. Like, it was torture in college to write papers and have to put a title on them. Like, agonizing. I sometimes think titling the paper took longer than writing like the 10-page paper, just because I felt like it had to be perfect to capture, the one professor who's going to read it attention. And was sitting on my porch at the home I was renting at that point in Charlottesville, Virginia, and Alchemy name just kind of popped to me, and I was like, you know what, that makes sense. It made sense in my brain. I might have to explain it to other people. It was a little hipster, yes, but it felt really, really good, and that's how it was kind of born. I will even say, even after naming it, it still didn't quite feel like a company. I think I had to get a few more people into